Hello, I'm Netta Linder, a Program Development Manager with Partnership Health Center in Missoula, Montana, and welcome to Fimela Figure. It has become my dream work. I've kind of made my work apply to what I've wanted to do and what I've seen need for. I started out, my background, I changed my major a lot. I actually started out as a pre-medical student at a private university called Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota, and decided that the health impacts, the changes that I needed to see were better served outside of the exam room. I went on to finish a degree in sociology with an emphasis in rural and environmental change because I am from a small reservation, or I shouldn't say small, a very low populated reservation. It's the 9th largest Native American reservation in Montana, in the northeastern corner of Montana. And we saw a lot of health impacts on our reservation that came from social conditions. We also saw a lot of mental health need there because with being forced onto reservations, it definitely impacts your health and well-being. So I finished my degree I didn't finish my degree in sociology. I went to work first at a 911 center back home after I left Concordia College. And I worked there for 3 years. And during that time, I took a lot of phone calls. So I don't know if everyone's familiar with what 911 is. And during that time, I worked on my home reservation and for our county, for the district where I lived. And I saw a lot of people with really poor health outcomes who were impacted really severely by things that were really preventable. So things that if they had had a resource or had something else in place, they may not have died or have had such severe functional impairments or severe problems after if they had access to other resources or better care quickly. So I did continue after I left there. I went and worked at another 911 dispatch center in Missoula County, which is on the other side of Montana. And the first job that I could find was at a 911 center there as well. So I went back to finish my degree in sociology through the University of Montana with an emphasis in rural and environmental change. And it was with the county, I ended up leaving the dispatch center so that I could finish school. And I was able to get a job at the front desk to fill in to cover for float while I was doing school with a local health center. And I worked in records and covered a lot of different places there. So I've been there for 14 years now, and I've had about 6 or 7 different job promotions, including working in the social work department. We didn't require licensure in the state of Montana to do that kind of work in case management and connecting people to resources. And I worked for quite a while with our Healthcare for the Homeless program, and then moved over to the main clinic and then accepted my current position. So I think really the experience with living in a small rural community and seeing how much impact there was outside of the exam room on health outcomes was really important to me. I work with a lot of people who did go on to finish their MD and DO and later, or became doctors and nurses, and who would get frustrated because they realized that the problems that a lot of people were encountering with like taking their medications and things like that were really things that they couldn't control from the exam room. It was sometimes things like people didn't have electricity to set an alarm to remember to take their medication, or in the case of the Healthcare for the Homeless program, people were worried about finding a place to sleep for the night and be safe, really have trouble with med adherence. So that's one of the things that I enjoyed, was working with populations like that and moving through those types of positions to help people who maybe weren't the best resourced work toward achieving better health, and helping the providers understand that not everyone comes in with the same equal resources and opportunities. Okay, so Amir and I met. Dr. Jayaringa is the founder of Telinga Hati, and Amir applied for the Waisili Professional Fellowship Exchange Program and needed a placement. So Amir is a doctor, and I understand he's one of the few doctors that have been accepted at this point into the Waisili PFP, the Professional Fellowship Program. He joined under the civic engagement component of the program, and he was placed at our organization. I was asked to host because we both have an interest in things like mental health and HIV/AIDS care. So I actually manage the program in Montana. We're a very low incidence state. I manage the program that helps provide health care and treatment to 16 counties in the western half of the state of Montana. And there's another program coordinator that does that for the other half of the state. So he got placed with our organization because our interests there aligned really well, especially with mental health and HIV/AIDS treatment. And he worked with us for 4 weeks, and we wrote a reciprocal exchange project. So not everyone that is accepted into Waisili is accepted for the reciprocal exchange, but we were selected. So in this day and age, like we had around 40 years ago, there was a very young boy in America who had contracted HIV from a blood transfusion. So he definitely didn't do anything wrong. They just weren't screening blood, and it was a newer disease back then. So Ryan White is the name of the program that I help provide. I'm not a doctor, but I help manage the program that provides care and treatment and case management, and social support really often is another need that comes up. So we connect people to resources and behavioral health care. And basically, HIV is no longer a death sentence. It's not necessarily a punishment from God. It's just a communicable disease that is viral, and there is treatment available. So we have quite a few things that we've done. Usually normalizing things, like realizing that more people, this is a more common problem that you might not think of. So like mental health issues. So I worked with the Mental Health Local Advisory Council locally for about 5 years as their secretary, and I would take notes. And that was a majority of people that were living with mental health challenges, things like depression, anxiety, their family members, and we had clinicians, people who provided care as well, who would meet once a month, and we would talk about some of the challenges that people encountered. So I think really that's where we kind of tie in with the civic engagement with Waisili is one of those approaches, is getting involved, is not being afraid and realizing you're not the only one. So folks can come together and have a safe space to discuss that and talk about the real life problems that they're facing. One of the other things is like the clinicians and government officials aren't usually the expert on things that people have lived experience with. So, like we tend to be the best expert on our own lives rather than someone else telling us how our life is. We know what that experience is like. And that I think applies to every individual. None of us live the exact same life. We all have different experience, and some things are unique and some things are fairly universal experiences, like the feeling of isolation, whether you have HIV or whether you're living with things like depression or anxiety or another mental health concern. You never know, you can find something that you're really interested in and pursue that. And unique opportunities will either present themselves or you can make your own opportunity by doing that, because sometimes maybe the field that you belong in hasn't really developed yet.